But first to some breaking revelations about the media's role in covering the Hamas terror attack on October 7. Many journalists use sources to get access so they can document events effectively. But how close is too close? An investigation by Honest Reporting has lifted the lid on the line between terrorist militant and journalists being blurred. Photojournalists used by the AP, CNN, the New York Times and Reuters position themselves in the middle of the terror attack so they could take photos and collect video. It is like knowing a plane is about to be hijacked, but instead of reporting that and saving lives, you let it happen either to get a good photo or because you agree with the motives. And if that doesn't make you sick, the picture of CNN photographer Hassan El-Sayed will. The journalist on the right and then the man on the left is kissing him on the cheek, and that's Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. Now, Sinwar is the mastermind of the October 7 attack, and that CNN journalist is so close to him, it looks like he's being kissed by a long-lost son. Here is Hassan on the ground by a burnt-out Israeli tank, side by side the terrorists who slaughtered more than 1,400 women, civilians and children. It has also raised questions about advanced knowledge. For journalists with camera gear to find themselves embedded with a terror cell, they must have had advanced notice of the attack. You don't just teleport into a situation like this. It would have taken sources, planning and time. Time that festival goers didn't have. Time that children blasted to pieces by bullets did not have. And finally, some parts of the media are starting to wake up. The Financial Times is reporting that Israel has asked these media companies to explain whether they had advanced knowledge of the attack. Israel calls for Palestinian photographers of Hamas raid to be treated as terrorists. Israeli officials have said that a group of freelance Palestinian photographers who transmitted images of the October 7 Hamas raid to international media should be treated as terrorists, claiming they had prior knowledge of the attack. Now, the media companies have cut ties with the journalists, but in my opinion, the damage is already done. Well, joining me on the show this week is the Australian's Darren Davidson and Sky News contributor James Bolt. James, let's go to you. It's a blurry line, but in this situation, you got the journalist who was being kissed on the cheek by the mastermind of the attack. What are your thoughts?
Well, first off with that photo, I don't know how that photo didn't get the leader of Hamas thrown off a roof from what goes on with those kind of photos in that land. But this is a really tough one, and it's tough to commentate on it so early in the investigation because we don't know what was known by who and when. And a couple of things I would say, from the Western, like from CNN, from AP, from Reuters, it's tough because those photos are news and you do want to report the news. I mean, this network aired videos taken by genuine terrorists because it does illustrate the story. Like, you do need to know the full picture of what is going on. From the journalist's perspective, look, it's very fishy. That photo with the Hamas leader, that is very fishy. But we also have to acknowledge those terrorists were parading their human trophies around a lot. Like, maybe they knew where the photographers were and were like, hey, look what we did, tell the media about this, tell the world, look how powerful we are. So it is tough. If there was prior knowledge, then not only is this guy, liable, but the Western media does need to ask itself, what could we have known and when? Like, when did this photographer say, hey, I've got some stuff for you? That's a big question. And then another question I'm really looking forward to what I'm hoping is going to be asked about going forward is, did this photographer happen to know where the hostages ended up being kept? And could he have told people, are they still alive? Are they safe? Could he have had any information about that? What did the New York Times, what did AP, what did they ask? And what did he know and what did he pass on? That's something I'm thinking about right now.
Yeah, and I guess, Darren, that's the charitable interpretation of this, is that perhaps the journalists just stumbled across it happening. I mean, from my opinion, based on the photograph, based on how close they all are, I think there is enough evidence to suggest that they must have had some kind of pre-warning. That as well, with CNN has fired them. The AP won't use them again. There has been, an outcome which is evidence in itself. But it goes to show that, we rely on journalists on the ground. To get into Gaza, you need to have ties to Palestine and Palestinian sources. And that line is blurry.
As you've both said, like, it's early on. We're still trying to corroborate some of the facts. But I mean, if they did indeed know or have advanced knowledge about these barbaric crimes, I mean, they're effectively accomplices in crimes, and you know, that's a whole new level of something that we haven't seen yet in this conflict. We've talked recently about the you know, too many reporters are quite quick to swallow propaganda and see their role as upholding perceived moral virtue rather than just reporting facts. You know, we talked about how journalists need to reflect more on the use of Hamas's use of the suffering of Palestinians to essentially win the public relations war. But this is a whole new level of you know, I mean, if this is all true, they're not journalists; they're effectively participants in those crimes. And we'll see what happens. As you both said, we're still waiting for some of the facts to emerge, but it's really, really worrying. I mean, the only kind of positive out of all of this is that those big major media outlets have stood him down immediately, and we now need a thorough investigation to see to get some answers to some of those great questions that you've raised.
Yeah, and I also want to know, was it just photos or were they also supplying information? Did CNN, did the AP, did anyone publish information from them as being the source? Because that's all out the window now. The whole thing's a massive mess.